What's up, everyone? Welcome to Prop It Up. Can only mean one thing. 4 o'clock Eastern time. That means the weekend has officially started, and we are here to get your weekend kicked off with all those props. We got an amazing slate of games. Not necessarily from college football, right, Matt? is college football kind of being a bummer?
Why you got to do that at 30? Just because 30% of the games are already banged, and who knows how many more will be done beforehand? Why you got to do that to us? We're a happy show, Andy.
Okay, well let's stick to NFL. Andrew, did you have anything going last night? I sat out last night's game. I couldn't get a feel for it.
Yeah, the completion props continue to work for me. I had Phillip Rivers over 23.5 completions, and got that cash probably on the first drive, I think it was, of the third quarter. So you love to have those kind of plays, and it worked out well. I thought they were going to go down early. They go down early, and yeah, the best part about having a completions prop is that when you see constant, 3 or 4 yard dump offs, that's what we were seeing constantly. He didn't throw it deep. It was constant 4 to 6 yard tosses. And it benefits for me. And that goes to show with Tennessee, they were ranked just one spot below the Seahawks in pass completions allowed per game. So happy to have one of those no sweat winners.
Yeah, I at one point I thought Nyheim Hines was on pace for 31 catches for 47 yards. It was just dump off for a yard or two. So yeah, that worked out. That worked out really well for you, Matt. What'd you have in this game? I thought you had a pretty good game, didn't you?
Yeah, I went 2-0. Had the over on Trey Burton receptions, which was 2.5 for me. Some people got 3, so they at least pushed. And then I had the over. Love my kicker props. Rodrigo Blankenship had it was over 6.5 points. That's why I was freaking out a little when they wouldn't kick the damn field goal in that first drive, and then they kept going for it. But Rodrigo Blankenship went well over the 6.5 points, so it was a 2-0 night.
I wondered why you were on Twitter wanting him to kick the field goal. I was like, why does Matt want him to? That's right.
Yeah, the mid-major guy takes those mid-major positions in football too.
I do want to say, because Matt went on Twitter last Sunday and mentioned all the success that he had, but accumulatively, it seemed like it was a great show for the three of us. A lot of different props mentioned. So, we're going to talk about volume and that kind of stuff is a big topic today. But, for all of you guys that tuned in, hope you were able to cash in, because between the three of us, I think we had a good week.
And cannot stress, we go over this every week, how important it is to have multiple books. The prop I gave out to Sean Watson, if you took one of the locals or one of the high ones, you got 285 or even 290, someone said. FanDuel had it at 275, and that prop landed at 281. So a perfect example of you have multiple books, and it equals winners. So, all right, let's actually, you know what? Let's promote ourselves a little bit. We got a promo code for this week, prop 10. Let me put it up on the screen. So they gave us a prop last week, or a promo code last week. They got another one this week. This will get you $10 off any of our packages. You can use it for anything, for Matt, for Andrew, or myself. So just go to Wager Talk or Sports Memo. Use the promo code prop 10. My prop package is already up. I have one. I'm kind of taking these fringe sports that I play, and I'm just throwing them all in the NFL prop pool because I can't figure out where else to put them. So, Matt, will you have a college football package up? You'll have a 3-day package. What all will you have up?
Yeah, I got 2 games for tonight for college football. That's up there right now. And then I'll have my college football other stuff for tomorrow up later on tonight. And then, of course, the NFL props will go up Saturday because, as I like to say, the Overpalooza will happen on Sunday. So you try and beat that and get some better value on Saturday night.
Nice. Andrew, what are you going to have up for us this weekend?
Might want to unmute you a bit.
Yeah, gotta mute yourself.
When you're promoting yourself, you might as well try and be heard at least. But yeah, I did the exact same thing that Andy's been doing for weeks. My NFL Week 10 prop package has been up and posted, so it just makes way more sense. I had somebody buy my single prop for last night for $25 when my package for every single prop for this week is $39. So that's going to be getting updated as I release plays. Like Matt says, Saturday evenings, Sunday mornings at those times. That's why I was encouraging and hoping to get something like this. So we had a great package and coupon code for last week, which a lot of people took advantage of for longer term packages. But this prop 10 I hope people can use with 3-day or 7-day passes, or even just the package for our prop plays or Matt's college plays or Andy's golf, because this is a kind of a shorter term one. And if you don't want to get up Sunday morning and buy a package, or wait Saturday evening to get one of our props we post, grab our complete prop package. And whenever we release a play, it'll get added there. And I think it's a really good idea.
Nice. Good stuff. All right. Each week we tackle one big topic. This one is going to be absolutely great. Matt, I demand nothing but honesty from you about this, because we talk about this a lot. I always tell people I think some of the most interesting conversations happen before we go live or after we go live. And we've talked about this a lot before we go live. So that we decided to make it the topic for this week. How many props do you play, and what bankroll size do you put on each one? So, Andrew, I will start with you. What is your theory about how many plays you're going to be looking to play? Do you have a specific number? Do you play everything? Do you play all your leans? And what bankroll size do you end up using?
I'll start with the whole bankroll size thing. For me personally, and I think that as the fellow prop guys, you guys would probably agree with this, I take these plays just as seriously as I take any other play. In fact, I had a way stronger feeling, of course, with that being my only play with Phillip Rivers over last night, than I did on the total or the side in that game. And I think that a lot of people say, hey, what percentage of your bankroll do you play these props in comparison to a total or a side wager? It's the same. It's all about the same percentage or the confidence that you have in that specific wager. Recently I've been finding much more success with the props, so it definitely isn't lower and definitely isn't too much higher. It's the same, 3%, 4%, 5%, same as we preach at Wager Talk. As far as the volume, I could come on here and really, bitch and complain about this, but I'm just going to put it in a positive note. Last Friday was a really good show for me. I had a lot of great winners that I gave out, a couple that went to my clients, a couple that didn't. And it's one of those things where you just can't give out, 15 props or 20. And 2 weeks ago, I had a large amount of touchdown scorers, receiving yard props, quarterback props. And you can do that. I know a lot of successful high volume handicappers, and there is no such thing as shaming someone that has high volume. But I find that when you're narrowing it down, you're doing your research and looking at things over a longer period of time, I think you can find the best numbers that are working for you. And I find that if you have such a big scale, it's hard to narrow in on which ones are kind of working the best. So, last week is a good example for me, because the week before that, I did great with my sides and totals and got crushed with my props. So I came back the next week and narrowed it down to about 3 or 4 prop plays, Andy. And, I had a 4-0 Sunday. Could have been a lot better, but you can't risk that bankroll too much. The volatility is going to be there. So, you want to come in with a game plan, but, if you love the board, by all means, you have to decide what your percentage of your bets are going to be. So if you're someone that's looking to bet 15 or 20 each week, you have to make those, smaller wagers on the percentage of your bankroll. If you're doing 4 or 5 per weekend, I'd say those bets are the exact same bet as it would be for your Sunday night football bet, and that's the biggest thing I think you have to realize is what's working for you, what's not. Did you make too many receiving yard props last week? Did you make too many anytime touchdown scorer props? Find out what's working best for you. Nice.
All right, Matt, you and I have this discussion a lot, so the floor is yours. Don't hold back.
No, I'm not. I mean, I'm probably it's very hard being in this side of the industry. I mean, it used to be easy when props weren't a thing and I never put them out, or I just put them out on Twitter. But now that we've made, I think the three of us and some of the others have made it a regular thing, it's hard, because before I got into this industry, when I would do props, I would just go and I'm a spray the board kind of guy. I'll see this, I'll cherry pick this and this and this. And it's different when you're here, because you have to sell it to the clients. And look, I mean, I'll admit I've sold 10, 11 props on a Sunday, and it's hard to say, okay, well, I like this one more. I like this one less. You have to put the more. It's hard for the client if you are putting out a ton of props. So to me, but I also am afraid of leaving things off. So, I mean, I've told everybody here several times on the show, I'll go through all the props and everything. I'll put all the ones I'm considering, and usually I'll come up with like 30, and there'll be a ton of them there. And then I'll start digging into each of them. And then I'll be like, all right. but I can't cut myself off at 5. So I try and cut myself off at 10, but then there's team totals because I like playing team totals. And then there's the teaser, and then there's other things. So I do admit I sell a bigger card than I probably should, but for me, I'd rather sell more than leave a lot of winners off and kick myself for picking the wrong ones from that list.
Yeah, I tend to play way less and bet more on the plays. So I will really limit the ones that I don't feel strongly about, but I will absolutely play more than most people do. So instead of having 20 plays at $100, I'll have 10 plays at $250 that I feel good about. This is especially this is in NASCAR, this is in UFC, like where there's only one event. Like NASCAR, there's a race. I'm going to have 2 plays that week, but I'm going to hammer them. You know, I'm going to hammer them pretty good.
Yeah.
Especially I feel good about it. So, me personally, I'm not a volume player. I don't like having my bankroll tied up in all of those. But like Andrew said, there are plenty of guys that do it, and I've tried to follow them, and I can't.
Yeah.
It doesn't work for me.
Andy, I respect on your UFC show how you always say, I didn't bet this guy, but it's something to look forward to for next week. That's something that I can learn from you, and I think everybody out here can learn from you, because I've done that now with props. It's like, hey, I'm really pissed at myself for going back, watching on last Friday's show and mentioning about Dalvin Cook, not giving him out. But hey, remember that for next week. Remember that when they're playing a weak rush defense. You know, it's sometimes you can say, hey, look, I was right. Even though you didn't place the bet, it's a good feeling to feel right and try and take advantage of it again. That's what you do on your UFC show, right?
Yeah, it is. We had probably our biggest winner we've ever had on UFC. We predicted it down to the punch. That was a lot of fun last week. So, all right, enough about that. That's a good discussion, guys. I think really what we say is whatever you feel most comfortable with, and honestly, whatever is most profitable. You know, if you're a high volume player and you can go 16-4. By all means, go 16-4 in that week. So, all right, let's get to some NFL action. We already got a couple questions in here. I will make some notes, make sure we get to those. Let's start with Bengals at the Steelers. Pittsburgh Steelers. In the last 3 games, they are the worst rushing defense. 163.7 yards a game rushing. This is a big switch. I also like to point out that. Well, I don't know. Ask you guys, Matt, is T. Higgins the number 1 wide receiver on the Bengals? It kind of feels like it. 3 straight games over 70 yards and 5 catches. What do you make of this game?
I don't know if that's necessarily the case. I think it's still Boyd is still number 1. The problem is actually it's not a problem for them. It's a problem for us. AJ Green has been a number 1 some weeks. I mean, AJ Green had a little bit of a resurrection. First thing I'll point out here is weather. That there's going to be tail end of that. Maybe at the start of the game there'll be a little bit of rain, but 20-mile-an-hour winds, 18-mile-an-hour winds. So it's something to consider. So once again, like we talked about last week, and we'll get into some of the games. Tight ends, running backs, stuff like that. Nothing down the field. Slot guys like Tyler Boyd. Those are the guys that you would go after in this game more so than the deep threats. I don't know. Can we consider any of the Steelers guys deep threats? Maybe Deontay Johnson. I mean, but none of them really are deep threats, right?
Andrew, what do you think? That's a good question. I hadn't really thought about that. You would have beginning of the year. I would think, well, no, Juju Smith-Schuster. You know, he's, deep threat. You know, bombs away. Instead, it's just a bomb. He's been a bomb. So, Andrew, what do you think?
And yards after catch is huge with that Steelers team too. I mean, we'll get into it with a guy like Mike Evans, but I know Matt talked about him today on Wager Talk today. And certain guys you can rely on just to catch that ball and do something with it and make something happen. So, looking at those plays as well. But look, this game, to me, it's wash, rinse, repeat. Now it's something I can't ignore. Joe Burrow over completions. Bengals number 1 completions per game. Obvious reasons. They're always down. They're always losing their games, and they're always forced to try and come back and make the game interesting. 27.8 on the season, 29 per game, and 28 per game on the road. Look, this is an interesting spot for me because looking at a completions handicap here, the Steelers are number 3 in opponent pass completions per game against. So they're actually limiting that. However, they've actually been playing some pretty competitive games, at least recently. or supposed to have been competitive. This is a game where the Pittsburgh Steelers are favored to win by 7 points. Meaning, to me, the exact same thing that has been happening is going to happen for the Cincinnati Bengals, where they do get down. They force Joe Burrow to have to throw the ball. And I think it presents a scenario, just like I saw last night with Phillip Rivers, where it might not be deep downfield. And you guys kind of segued it for me in presenting the idea of not just one or two guys are getting the ball. We're sitting here struggling to find out who that number one guy is on a week in, week out basis. To me, that's a good thing if I like completions, because that means I know that he can diversify his offense throughout. Also, Joe Mixon, there were some concerns about him on the injury front. That also helps us out with the rushing. And the Bengals, number 7 on passing play percentage, with 63% of the plays being passes. And I'm just expecting a lot of checkdowns for them. So looking at that, also had T. Higgins circled for receptions last 3 games, 6, 5, and 6.
Yeah, if you get a lot of Giovanni Bernard in this game, that's gonna be 6 or 7 easy, quick little dump off passes to pad the completions for sure. So the football team, which I still love saying every week, we have not a football team, the football team at the Lions. The football team has given up the least amount of passing yards in the league this year. The Lions have given up 34 points to the Vikings, 41 points to the Colts the last 2 weeks. Their defense is getting torched. I'll tell you right now, I'm going to look at a sneaky J.D. McKissic prop if it comes out, over receiving and possibly rushing and receiving. 9 catches last week with Alex Smith, completely dumping the ball off all game long. Matt, what do you think about the football team and the Lions?
I mean, you just took what I was going to say. I like J.D. McKissic too, I think, and maybe even Antonio Gibson's carries, because it's a little inconsistent, but I think there's a chance that they have a lead in this game. So therefore, I think Gibson could carry it more. I think McKissic could catch it more. By the way, it is the Adrian Peterson revenge game, and he's going to show Washington what they're missing. So I don't know. Like we've talked about, do I think that Matt Patricia buys into stuff like that? I actually kind of think he does, because he's a terrible coach. So maybe AP, despite the fact that DeAndre Swift is better, is going to get more carries. But I think I'm going to run from Adrian Peterson, despite his revenge game motif.
His revenge game.
Every week we're going to hear that. I love it. Anthony Thomas here in the chat box saying, always losing, Bengals lead to this team, that team, that. I'm talking about good teams, like number one, like top tier teams. So yeah. Thanks for being that guy in the chat box correcting me, but I'm talking about against like great teams. So I don't consider the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Cleveland Browns as great teams, but yeah, appreciate the correction. I mean, you gotta
specify, Andrew.
Yeah, definitely. That's why we have a chat box, right? That's why we have a chat box for that exact reason.
Yeah, bring your A game to the
number 30 in rushing yards allowed per game. Antonio Gibson sounds like he's healthy. They're clearing him. One day he's not good. The next day he's perfect. Lions are averaging 186.5 yards from scrimmage per game, 15 touchdowns to running backs through 8 contests on the season. This one seemed like a very obvious run play versus pass play. And the Lions are a team I'll be picking on every single week, really, on the rushing prop for their opposition. So I'm looking at Antonio Gibson here at a pretty fair number.
Christian said that the McKissic prop is over 30.5 receiving. Is that right? Can someone stat check that? Because that
I don't know.
Awfully low.
I want to mention as well, opponent completion percentage per game is Washington is number 2. So to me, that kind of helps me out to think that they may run the ball a lot more.
It could also be a TJ Hawkinson game, because I've enjoyed taking tight ends against Washington. So if Hawkinson's healthy now, he practiced Wednesday, didn't practice yesterday, so I don't know what he did today, but this could be a TJ Hawkinson game as well.
Yeah. Hawkinson has been pretty good. Oh, Christian says it's on Bet 365. Oh, well, we don't get that over here, but
yeah, every single number that you guys mentioned from your FanDuel sportsbook is pretty much different than the rest of the world. So I go on FanDuel sometimes, just look at the prices, and they're completely different than everywhere else, every other market, by at least 1 or 2 points.
I can absolutely get behind 30.5 yards for J.D. McKissic. So, okay, the Texans at the Browns. it's like the game script is almost too obvious. Houston gives up over 5 yards a carry. Cleveland rushes for 5 yards a carry. I mean, I almost feel like it's too obvious. And is someone going to rope-a-dope us into taking a bunch of props on Cleveland rushing overs, and then they come out and they try and get Baker Mayfield going? Also, the Texans, they're actually not scoring a lot of points this year. 23 points or less in 5 games this year, which kind of surprised me. I was looking at their game log. So, Andrew, I'll go to you first. What do you think? Is this too obvious of a play, or is this just don't overthink it and grab it?
Don't overthink it, man. Whenever you've said that on this show, I think you've cashed. So I'm going to be the guy to say to you, don't overthink it. I'm going to sound like a broken record, but these have been pretty good for me so far. Cleveland, number 30 ranked in the league with just 18 completions per game. Last game, 12 for obvious reasons. Crappy weather. Last 3, 16 completions. Cleveland, number 5, 150 in team rushing yards per game. The only question is, which I present back to you guys, there's obviously an interesting scenario here with Chubb or Hunt. These reports have been interesting to read all week about what Chubb's status is. I think you could probably get a pretty good low number on Hunt here. And I was also thinking about Hooper at the tight end position, looking at him to get some yards. But it's interesting to look at. The Baker Mayfield under completions prop could actually be a play. And seeing Anthony Thomas here, Fuller 6 straight games with a TD catch. That was a client play of mine. It was Fuller over his receiving yards. And, Matt and I have spoken about this during the year, and it was something that we talked about as a group discussion. A guy to pick on for receiving yards or receptions, never, ever, ever take Fuller for his receptions. Just go receiving yards. I had to sweat that entire game out, and he had a 90-yard bomb caught for a touchdown, and I was pretty much losing that play the entire game. So Fuller is a guy for receiving yards, not receptions.
Matt, what do you think about this game?
Well, 28 to 30 mile an hour winds. So to me, if Chubb plays and is active, I'm looking at his carries. If it's not Chubb, then it's a Hunt carries. And if they're both active, you may get decent numbers. Heck, you might consider playing both of their carries. Also, Duke Johnson revenge game, because he's going to start now because David Johnson is out. And also, I gave it out on Wager Talk today, but if you can get a under 34.5 for the longest completion for Baker Mayfield, in that win game, the longest completion was 25 yards. His 3 longest completions, one was to Odell Beckham, who's out, Harrison Bryant, and Austin Hooper. So to me, when there's stiff wind, and I don't like Baker Mayfield's arm as it is, under 34.5, I think is what it was on the show. So that's something I would consider there.
What is it usually, Matt? Like, how much of an adjustment have the books made because of the weather for that bet?
I mean, I think the first time we probably could have gotten some value, but since we just saw the Raiders game with the two of them and we just saw what happened there, like the field goal prop, heck, I would consider maybe taking the under in the field goal prop, because we saw that one field goal that was like, woo, and it's just, this is another game. It's going to be tight ends and running backs, and so I would not go anything too much in the wide receivers in this game.
Good. I enjoy playing Kareem Hunt when Nick Chubb is there. I feel like the books lower the number, and for whatever reason, Hunt, I don't know whether it's fresher legs or the defense just has to take on 2 running backs that soften them up. But I like taking the Hunt props when Chubb is there. That doesn't scare me at all. It almost makes me a little bit more excited. I would rather have Hunt when Chubb is there at like a 55-yard prop as opposed to Hunt at 95 when he's by himself. So because that backfield is a split. I
agree with that, Andy. It's interesting doing that sometimes, like betting on even like the wide receiver 2 or the running back 2 a little more than the number 1 option because of that better number you're going to get.
Yeah. So, oh boy, Jaguars at Packers. This has ass kicking written all over it. Devontae Adams, here are his receptions the last 3 games, 10, 7, 13. He scored 6 touchdowns in the last 3 games. Interesting, Matt, James Robinson, he's been rushing the ball, but he's doing nothing in the passing game. All of a sudden, he's a pure rusher and not getting in the passing. And just the eye test when I watched him as somebody that follows the Colts, he terrified me on screen passes and those little dump offs. So maybe they are all in for tank mode. So Chris wants to know if this is an Aaron Jones big game. Matt, what do you think? Aaron Jones?
I would think so. I would think it is. I had that. I mean, I'll admit, one of my losers last week was the over for the receptions for James Robinson. I thought he was going to he caught nothing. He wasn't even targeted. I mean, that was pretty ridiculous. They targeted, I think they threw twice to Chris Thompson, who had been pretty much, on the shelf. So I don't think I'll go back to the well here, but we do know that Green Bay can't exactly stop the run. So to me, maybe you cushion yourself with the rushing and receiving. And that way, if he does get back into the receiving game, you at least have some cushion there.
Nice. Jacksonville, number 27 ranked in rushing yards per game, 138 a point rushing yards per game. And I think it's pretty obvious that goes to the fact that, they're down a lot. They're down a lot, and their opposition doesn't have to throw the ball as much. And we've seen, like last week, I wanted to take Aaron Rodgers over with his touchdowns, didn't end up doing it. But this is one of those things where they, Andy started off the top saying, oh, that has ass beating all over it. But I think this could be an example where we see the Packers get up and then kill the clock. It's so shocking to see with the fact that the arm that Rodgers has, that they're actually top 5 in the league in time per possession. They like to kill the clock a little bit. So in doing so, you'd think you'd use a running back. I want to say, guys, Devontae Adams, Andy, you mentioned those stats for him. How about a minus 130 price on him to find the end zone again? That was the first, that could take any time for me to cash that last time around, and now it's minus 130. I'll take that all day. Also, do you guys agree? I mean, I know I've been saying this, with a minus 13 spread or bigger to look at this, but how is Jacksonville not going to have to throw the ball all night long, all game long? Like, they're actually averaging 25 completions per game because they have to throw the ball. Is there any reason we don't look at that here in this game? I mean, it's worked on bad teams. When DiNucci was the quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys, that cashed the completions because they have to throw the ball. Is there any reason not to play it here?
The devil's advocate play would be there if Green Bay does get up and then they run this Aaron Jones, Jamal Williams offense where they run 38 seconds off the clock and they've got a 10-minute drive. But yeah, I got to say I've been doing well on Aaron Rodgers props. I feel like this is like the Aaron Rodgers revenge year. And when he has a chance to, I don't want to say pad his stats, but just if he has a chance to throw on a bad defense, he is. I know Aaron Jones has been good, but you look at Aaron Rodgers and he's not having these games where it's only 120 yards when they run the ball. I mean, he is throwing when they're up 3 scores. And I'm happy to see it because I like hitting his overs. These touchdown and yards and completions. He's not scared. And I have to give credit to Chance. Chance has been telling me all year long about the longest pass prop, and that there are certain quarterbacks that hit it all the time. And Aaron Rodgers has got to be one of the best because anytime he gets that flag on an offsides, he's bombing it deep. He's throwing deep, and Devontae Adams has caught a long pass in the last 3 games. So I got to give credit where credit due. Chance has been on this all year long. So next game is this is our special one. Eagles at Giants. Each week we take a prop and we dissect it. And this week was Matt's turn to pick a prop, and he came up with a good one. This one was challenging. So we're going to focus on the Eagles at the Giants, and our task was we're going to look at the anytime touchdown score player prop, and we're supposed to look at all the players and see which one or which ones have the best value. So let's talk Eagles at Giants. Matt, this was your prop. Start us off. What'd you find when you did your research?
All right. So first off, obviously I like to think I know the Eagles better. And this is different from what Andrew says. I throw out the minuses. And look, Miles Sanders is, we're looking at the DraftKings. Miles Sanders is the only minus at minus 121. I usually throw those out because, like he was talking about Devontae Adams. I don't know. Look, Devontae Adams is probably going to score. Miles Sanders is probably going to score, but is it worth it to throw money down on a minus 121? If he doesn't score, then you're a loser there. So to me, when I look, and you look at the Eagles running backs, Miles Sanders probably the only one to score there. And then you look at the Eagles wide receivers. Well, this is the first week that Alshon Jeffrey is available. That they're going to have Alshon, they're going to have Goddard, they're going to have Ward, they're going to have Hightower, they're going to have Rager, they're going to have Fulgham. So to me, it's going to be really hard to pick one of the Eagles wide receivers. But I think Carson Wentz is going to throw 2 touchdowns here. So to me, I look at a guy like Dallas Goedert at plus 240, and I look at Alshon Jeffrey at plus 300, who I think is going to get a lot of red zone looks. I think he's going to be the red zone guy because I think you can't take snaps away from Travis Fulgham. So to me, I would put a little bit down on Dallas Goedert at plus 240. I'd put a little down on Alshon Jeffrey at plus 300. And then on the Giants side, look, I think there's some value with Evan Ingram at plus 240. I mean, Evan Ingram's had 9+ targets the last 3 weeks, and
Plus
the Eagles are terrible. Yeah, it's plus. Well, on DraftKings, I'm looking at plus 240.
Oh, wow, that's crazy. FanDuel is plus 210. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just shocked.
No, even plus 210 is not bad. So to me, look, I know everybody else is different. I know you guys will disagree, but to me, I'm throwing out the minus. And so to me, I'm looking at Ingram and Goddard, and I'm looking at Alshon Jeffrey. And then look, Daniel Jones is actually, you know what? Alfred Morris is down there at 7-1. I don't know what you guys are looking at. Alfred Morris is not terrible because for some reason it's the resurrection. I'm still stubborn and thinking Jalen Hurts' first touchdown could come, so 13-1. And this week I'm not going to bet on the John Hightower deep pass that I always think they're really close to connecting, and he's 6-1. So it's going to happen this week because I didn't take it. But there's some value here. This is a game where you can get some value on some of these touchdown guys.
Andrew, what'd you come up with?
Somebody has to score in this game, right? This definitely isn't one that I usually go to my way to make a touchdown wager with, just because I find it could be a little mix of a batch. 101 to start with. And I swear to God, this is not just to piss off Matt. The New York Giants defense, plus 550. I think it's just exceptional value on there. It's a great number. And this Giants team has found really weird ways to score. And it wouldn't shock me in an Eagles game versus the Giants if we saw something like that. All week long, I've been seeing people and reading articles, people talking about this game was just played. This matchup was just played just weeks ago. And numerous people weren't in that lineup. Numerous players weren't there, a number of them, for the Philadelphia Eagles. They're saying it's pretty much a new game, fresh start, so on and so forth. But I still think that this Giants team looks strong. They're getting completions. They're passing the ball well. I agree. I'm right there with Matt. Right now, FanDuel is plus 210 for Evan Ingram to find the end zone. But I thought Sterling Shepard at plus 185 was a pretty good one. I think he'll be targeted quite a bit. And although it's up and down for his red zone looks, I think that at the plus 185 mark, this is a game here for obvious reasons, Matt, where we're not seeing any minuses. But after the minus 105, the closest one to that is Gallman at plus 135. So I actually wouldn't touch that. And the last one I wanted to say was Carson Wentz, plus 230. Wouldn't shock me to see they're in the red zone. It's a really important part of the game. He's standing there in the pocket, pocket's collapsing, and he has to go out there and find the end zone himself. Like, it wouldn't shock me at a plus 230 price to lay that. So not a game that I really loved as far as TD scores, but I think a couple of those, a touchdown from a quarterback, a defensive touchdown, a couple of those. If we got one of those to happen, we're in pretty good shape. Also like the field goal overs in this game.
Yeah, field goals. That's a good one. Here's what I came up with. So I actually think the Giants defense has looked pretty decent the last 4 games. They haven't given up over 25 points to the last 4 opponents. So you're probably looking at 3 touchdowns for the Eagles, maybe 4. Giants have only given up 2 TDs to tight ends all year. So I'm going to stay away from that. They've given up 8 rushing TDs, 15 receiving TDs. I wanted to take Travis Fulgham. He has a TD catch in every game he's played in, except when they played the Giants. I don't find any value on the Eagles player, so this is what I came up with. And this is funny because, Matt, you said no way I'm playing it. The Eagles have given up a rushing touchdown in every game, except the Cowboys, who are awful, and then randomly the Bengals earlier this year. And of the 6 games that they gave up a rushing touchdown, in 5 of those, they've given up 2 rushing touchdowns. So I think the odds tell you there's going to be 1, probably 2 touchdowns. Freeman got hurt in Thursday's practice. I think Gallman, you said plus 135, Andrew. I got him at plus 165. I would take Wayne Gallman at plus 165 as my prop, seeing as how the Eagles are susceptible to some rushing. But yeah, it could be one of those muddy, kind of muddied down, banger games. Not a lot of points scored. So I would lean towards rushing. So good stuff, Matt. That was a great prop to go over. Good job. That may be
now.
You talked with me before about the Philadelphia Eagles being known to go for it on fourth, and that's why you said you might question some of these props for kickers or field goals. How do you feel about it in this game? I was looking at the over 3.5 here.
I mean, Doug Peterson's gone for it the most. And I don't know what his confidence level is in Elliott nowadays, because Elliott's missed some field goals. So I don't love it. And if you think that maybe a team's going to do it, you could just go for the 1.5. Like if you think the Giants are more susceptible, then take the over 1.5 for the Giants as opposed to the Eagles. I'm interested. I mean, I don't know if you guys are putting it on your card, but I had quite the discussion on Wednesday with Prez and Ralph about it. I think the Giants +4 is the way I would go. And I only think it's like 70% handicapper, 30% angry Eagles fan. Have you guys thought about that?
I think in a game with two I think they're similar teams. So getting over a field goal for any team, I mean, this game should be a pick 'em or -1. So, but I don't handicap spreads, but at first the +4 seemed a little weird to me. I don't know about you, Andrew.
I'm on the +3.5 already for 3% decline play for me.
Nice.
There you go.
Nice. Next game, Buccaneers at the Panthers. Christian McCaffrey is out. Why bring him back this year? Like, this is the injury year from hell for him.
They brought him back, Andy, so I would regret not taking him to score a goddamn touchdown. That's what they brought him back to do, because it was pretty automatic, and I didn't do it. So,
well, it just like sometimes bad karma is around you. Their running game, let's face it, does not really miss that much of a beat. Christian McCaffrey in the lineup doesn't equate to wins. If you want him there for the rest of his career, don't run him into the ground. And okay, I've digressed. All right, so McCaffrey is out. Mike Davis.
I love the passion, man. I love the passion with that.
I hate when teams do this. Like, oh yeah, there's our franchise running back. Get out there when your shoulder is dislocated. The Bucks are only giving up 3.3 yards a carry, which is crazy. Tampa, talk about a confusing team on offense to predict. I mean, first off, Matt, I would like you to tell me what their game plan against the Saints was and where they came up with that. Hardly ran the ball at all and let New Orleans do whatever they want. But then, I mean, what do you do with this Tampa Bay offense? Is there anything that we can play with any type of confidence? And are you looking at anything for Carolina?
Well, I'm looking now at DraftKings. I think no interception for Tom Brady it's -118. I think that's something I'm probably going to look at, because Carolina's secondary is not very good, and I think this is the type of game where Tampa Bay maybe gets a lead and then all of a sudden sits on it and runs it with Fournette and Jones. I mean, I've already said I like the over for Mike Evans's yards. The big story after the game against the Saints was Mike Evans was open. Why the hell did you not throw the ball to him, you big dummy? I mean, that's essentially what Arians said, and I love it. I love that Arians calls out Brady after games like that, because he's not afraid of him. He's like, okay. But I think this is a quote-unquote squeaky wheel, excuse me. And I think Evans gets over, I think it's 51.5, and it's 51.5 on DraftKings. I think he's the type of guy, as Andrew said, you go yards as opposed to receptions, because when he catches it, he goes big with them.
Andrew?
Yeah, I looked at this game, and I'm looking at rushing yard prop here with Leonard Fournette. The reports are coming out. It seems like it's even more and more of a split. If you take away that last game against the Saints, where it was 4 rushing plays, which is just laughable for us here on the prop show. But back-to-back weeks before that, he reached double-digit carries. And I think it goes back to the point that Andy and I are mentioning early in the show about taking these quote-for-quote secondary guys, secondary options on their plays and their rushing yards. But, something that Matt has talked about, which I've actually looked into quite a bit for this game, is the receiving and rushing yards. It's not out at every book, but I think this could be a really good opportunity here to get that with Leonard Fournette, both receiving and rushing combined. It just seems to me that, if you're a fantasy owner for Ronald Jones, you're not really happy about this. But based off what I'm seeing from the quotes from the teams, and right now what we're seeing on the field, it's more of a split right now. And I think Fournette is going to see more and more dump-offs as well. So, I think if you're a fantasy owner, you like Fournette. I think if you're a prop bettor, you can look for receptions or receiving yards or the combined receiving and rushing, because I think that Fournette is certainly involved in the game, but it might not be just strictly on a rushing standpoint. Interesting point, guys. Last week, I was like, take a look at the because I like to roast myself sometimes. It's always fun to do this. Take a look at the rushing prop, take a look at the completion under for Tom Brady, because they're going to run the ball a lot. That's what I said. Take a look at and depending on where you shop, he still cashed his under for completions with 4 running plays. That's how bad the game was. He ran the ball 4 times and still almost didn't cash his completion prop. So I'll say it once again. I would look at the completion prop under for Tom Brady this week.
Because they're going to run the ball. It's funny you mentioned, you were like, oh, the secondary running back. And I'm like, God, who's the secondary running back in Tampa? Who's the primary running back in Tampa? So next game, we got Broncos at my Las Vegas Raiders. So Phillip Rivers held the title for garbage time points. He took that away from McCaffrey, in my opinion. Boy, Drew Lock is making a real serious run for the most stats when they're down. But stats at the end of the game, they all count. It's been great for the Broncos passing game, 40 or more pass attempts in 3 straight games for Drew Lock. I actually have him on a fantasy team with Drew Brees, and I'm going back and forth just because, stats-wise, Lock has gotten the job done. It's good for guys like Tim Patrick. And my Raiders winners are 3 out of the last 4. Weird stat. In 2 out of the last 3 games, a running back other than Josh Jacobs has been the leading rusher. So we had that big 31 carry game, but sandwiched in it, Jalen Richard was leading rusher, and then Devontae Booker ran for more yards. So some weird stats. Matt, what can you decipher from the Broncos and the Raiders?
Well, I think Drew Lock goes over. It's not out yet in a lot of places, but I think Drew Lock goes over the touchdown passes. I think the Raiders secondary is terrible, and I like Judy and I like Patrick, and I've been able to jump on the Patrick bandwagon the last couple of weeks in terms of his receptions and stuff. I just think he's a good wide receiver, and I think Judy's coming into his own too. So to me, I think Drew Lock, look, he's a guy that has had 5 touchdown passes the last 2 weeks after having 0 for a bunch of weeks. And I think that he's starting to get more comfortable in that lineup. I'll even say this. I think there's a chance. I got to look at the Broncos injury report, but I think the Broncos themselves are going to make my card because it's the dreaded look ahead for the Raiders. Who've got the Chiefs next week at home. And don't tell me that the Raiders don't feel like one of those teams that's going to be looking ahead next week as opposed to focusing on this week.
Andrew, what do you think? Broncos? Raiders?
I've only taken a look at one here, and it's a prop I've recently gotten into, which is just the attempts. Not completions, but the passing attempts for a quarterback. I'm looking at Drew Lock here. We saw 48, 41, 40, 3 straight games. Also to be mentioned, obviously, it was the Falcons, Chargers, and the Chiefs. 3 teams you're going to have to pass the ball against. But I'll say even against the Raiders, they're a team that's going to string you into competitive games, and a lot of their games have been tight. And I look at it, and I think that you're not going to be able to just drive the ball up the field. And Matt mentioned it. I've actually really been liking cashing with Tim Patrick. Jerry Jeudy, you can always count on him for a good check down. And, look at his percentages, 52%, 63, 60, 41. It's not great, but he still has to throw the ball. If you like this Denver Broncos team, I hope you're not betting first half bets with them because they're only
right.
a second half team. I look at his pass attempts for this game. That's my main bet I'm on so far in this one. I like it a lot.
Yeah, and that Broncos running game is kind of a mess. They're going back and forth between Gordon, who's just kind of lost a step, and Lindsey, who's obviously better, but they don't want to give him the job, so just Lock throw it. Bills at Cardinals. Kyler Murray, 10 rushes or more the last 3 games, over 67 yards in all those. But he's also been throwing touchdowns, 8 touchdowns in the last 3 games. The Bills, besides Tampa, one of the most hilarious game plans. I mean, they were like, we are not throwing, or we're not going to run against Seattle. There's no reason to ever run the ball. Their leading rusher had 18 yards. They just threw the ball at Seattle's defense and ran up the score. I thought it was great. I don't know, Matt, if this game feels like fireworks. Bills at Cardinals, a lot of over potential.
Well, I mean, it's the highest total on the board, and as I've learned, you always take the over for the highest total and the under for the lowest total, and it's pretty good for you. So, I mean, look, I'm not a Buffalo guy in terms of their defense, and so you think Tre'Davious White's going to probably follow DeAndre Hopkins. Last week, I hit on some Larry Fitzgerald props because the Dolphins had the outside locked down, and so it could be another Larry Fitzgerald time, could be a Christian Kirk time. I do think this could be a Kyler Murray runs around a little bit time because of that Buffalo pass rush. So you're right. There's probably some over potential here in this one.
Andrew, anything jumping out at you for this game?
I think that, first of all, I'm going to keep looking at that Josh Allen pass completions over for him. I think this team has certainly turned into, a team that's going to consist. I think it's 63% of the time they're running passing plays. Not just that, but they're pushing it downfield. Look at that long pass prop potentially with that Bills team. But as far as a betting standpoint here, it's actually an interesting spot because the Cardinals getting ready for the Seahawks. But they're off an interesting loss here against the Dolphins. So they're pissed off. Bills off a really, really strong win against the Seahawks. Potentially looking at a Kyler Murray rushing yards over. Take that ball, take it into his own hands, and see what he can do with it when the team needs a first down. I think a quarterback, when they're young, and in their interviews, they look genuinely pissed off. As much as you want to be a team guy, they have that energy in their head. They're going to do something more themselves. So I expect that from him, to, even though obviously he's the quarterback, to try and do something a little more himself and carry the ball.
Seahawks at the Rams. I'll tell you what, Seattle, they are letting Russ cook. Unfortunately, they're letting the other team cook a lot. It is a buffet, a smorgasbord of props in these Seattle games. Jared Goff looks primed for a field day against Seattle. Seattle has already given up 2,980 yards passing. I mean, this is incredible. I will just throw out that Goff's passing yards prop is 292.5, and Russell Wilson's total is 295.5. Matt, is there any unders that you're going to be on in this game?
I'm not a Jared Goff guy, so I think even he screw this up. I mean, it's not that I don't think Seattle's going to suddenly play defense. I'm just not a Jared Goff guy, so I probably would get away from it. Hell, I might even, depending upon what the prop is, I might take him to throw an interception. I don't like Jared Goff. I'll profit from him. I got to look and see how the slot guys do and see if Cooper Kupp's in line for another, 20 targets like he was 2 weeks ago. That was awesome as a Cooper Kupp fantasy owner. But yeah, you're right. There's not many unders here to be found in this game.
Andrew, who you like?
We've talked about the receiving props or touchdown props. It's hard to look at some of them sometimes with guys like Lockett or Metcalf. However, when you got a team like that where it's pretty much just both of them going off, and this is where the back and forth with Matt and I ensues, where it's like, hey, do you want to take a guy minus 105 or 115 to score a touchdown that's consistently fine in the end zone, even though it's not great value on it? I will continually go back to it. And we talked about it last week. Do you ever double up on a player? Do you ever go triple up on a guy, receiving yards, receptions, touchdown? If you've done that with Metcalf in his biggest games, you could literally get screwed in 1 or 2 weeks and you're still up big time on the season so far. So I'm looking at Metcalf to get involved, to get the job done. What a weird game this is going to be, honestly. I think this is going to be I like what Matt said, because it's actually I think something I've looked at recently, how it's like the highest scoring games are going over, or the highest total.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think Matt says, Jared Goff could screw anything up, but I think that he's played some bad football. He's cost his team potentially some games, looking back at that Dolphins game as well. So I think he will go out there. I just wonder to myself, guys, if maybe it is a better time, because I've been talking about completions nonstop, to look at just the receiving guards over the completions.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I think.
I think in this instance it is. I think Goff will just have maybe a handful of really, really strong plays that make the game, and the rest of them could be questionably low yardage throws. That's just the feel I have on this game.
Yeah, and I don't know. Flip a coin. Who's going to be the wide receiver of choice, Metcalf or Lockett? I've looked at those games. I cannot figure out the rhyme or reason. I mean, obviously they got a plan for it. So
the thing with Metcalf is he'll catch a 10-yard play and turn it into a touchdown.
You're right. All right, 2 games left. Ravens at Patriots. Andrew, name one Patriot you'd take an over on right now. Go.
Cam Newton.
Over what?
That was my best bet. That was my best bet in their game against the Jets. I had his completions over. I had his attempts over.
Wow.
It's a buy low opportunity on a guy that literally everyone wanted to hate on, and it's what I've learned with really, really diving into props every single week now is that you can look at past history. You can look at numbers right now. You can look at, and I've been doing it. I've been talking about what this team ranks, what that team ranks, but it's all about matchups. It's all about what you match up in general. I'm going right back to the well with the completion attempts for Cam Newton. I got it at 27.5. That was an easy winner against the Jets, and I think it'll be the exact same story against the Baltimore Ravens. They're going to if they want to be successful and win the game, because I used to think the opposite, right? I love to learn from mistakes. And at the start of the show, when we first started doing this, or when I joined you guys, I said, hey, they're going to have to run the ball to be successful. They can't try and get involved in the receiving game. That's just not the case. They're not going to beat teams like the Ravens, and they're going to have to try and win this game. They can't win it off field goals. They have to throw the ball. I like Cam Newton.
Are they going to win it, though? Are they going to try and win it? I
don't believe in that with Bill Belichick. If they were going to try and win the game, I hate hearing that. Especially with the team like the Patriots. I can't buy it. Do you see the quote he came out with the other day? He goes, "Yeah, I think I know a lot of teams have done worse than me in the past 20 years." With the guys that they have, with the lack of superstar, caliber players that they have, with the undrafted players that they have, I know it was the Jets, but now we're going. That was a competitive game, and Cam Newton had a lot of completions. Now we're going against a game where they're going to be down 14-0 at some point, or down, 10 points at some point. Tell me they're going to just keep dumping the ball off to the running backs.
All right,
it could be an absolute blowout, and we could cash that completion prop.
You were absolutely 100% right last week. Maybe you are 100% right about this one. So I don't know, Matt. Where do you stand on that?
I think the Patriots are indirectly trying to lose. I mean, actually, that may change now because the Jets are three games ahead of them now. But I think they were trying to lose on Monday. It was a comedy of errors in terms of, I just think that the Jets were like, here, let's have Joe Flacco throw a 70-yard pass when we really just want to run the clock out and then get intercepted. Like, I know they're not telling the players to do it, but Belichick is smarter than all of us. Like, he's 17 moves ahead of us. But now I think he's screwed because they're now 3 games behind the Jets. For me, this game, I'm going back to my old reliable. I'm going to Justin Tucker over on points. This feels like a Ravens kick a bunch of field goals. He's the best kicker on earth. His range is immense. And so to me, I think we could see this is your field goal prop here, Andrew. I think this one, both teams, and I think Tucker especially, is going to be busy on Sunday.
I actually had the field goal prop or at least bet it for the Patriots in their last game. But, Matt, I think this comes from a Philadelphia standpoint here. The 76ers, the word tank is very familiar to you. But I don't know if that's really a thing. I don't know if the Patriots are trusting any processes.
I'm just saying, Bill Belichick is smarter than all of us. The guys that opted out, if you hooked them up to a lie detector, they'll tell you that they were prodded gently to say, hey, do you want to get paid? And do you want to take the year off just so we can potentially get Trevor Lawrence, since we kind of need a quarterback? I just think Belichick is the type to do it. Now, as I said, it's over now. The Jets are not winning 3 games, so the Patriots are not getting number one. Yeah. So that may be a change in their thinking.
Talk about a bad beat. I had James White, my only loss of week 9, over 25.5 receiving yards, lands on 24. So that was a bit of a tough one. So like I said, I'm not looking at anything receiving over or rushing over unless it's Cam Newton. That's kind of what I'm looking at. Also, Matt, I wonder if we can, real quick, you had a great prop that you mentioned, or a great bet that you mentioned about the New York Giants, which I literally had in my notebook. Talk to Matt about this. Matt's quarter prop with the New York Giants. Are there any other opportunities besides that one? And can you touch on that one? Because I think our viewers will find it interesting. And I'm just tipping my hat to you for that team total prop.
So it's something that, and Pinnacle has it. I'm okay with saying which book has it. They have breakdown by score by quarters, and so I started doing a little research on things like that, because when you think about it, you're like, in the NFL nowadays, there's more scoring going on, and I'm trying to pull it up now as we talk. There's more scoring going on, and there are certain teams that have a 0.5 first quarter, which essentially means they just have to score. And the Giants have scored touchdowns in 4 or 5 straight games. And I hit it last week. I had the Giants over half against the Redskins, the Washington football team. They scored 10. So I'm looking right now. The following teams have half a point. So tell me real quick if you guys would consider this.
Yeah, and I have the rankings up right now, so I'll tell you.
The Jaguars are at half a point for the first quarter. Would you consider
3 per
them?
game? 3 points on average per first quarter.
So would you consider that? Yes or no?
Yes.
Both you guys.
Yes.
Andy?
No, I wouldn't.
All right.
Not this week.
The Giants is over a half a point. Obviously, I said I like that, so I'm taking that one.
5.7 on average per first quarter.
All right, so the Panthers are over a half a point for this first quarter.
5.8 per first quarter on average.
Yep.
The 49ers are over half a point for the first quarter.
What's that one there? 5.2. I don't even know if I'd look at that one, honestly.
I would not either. I don't even know who's playing for them nowadays.
No,
I mean it's simple. I mean,
that would be
Debo's not
a simple
playing.
numbers game, and I've tried to develop Matt into more of a analytic guy, even though I'm still, I would say, a situational and try and know the game quote for quote. But to me, that would be just simply just looking at the number. I don't know who the hell is going to score for them. So.
Right, and then the last one, which is your Patriots over half a point, and those are the teams. And
1.8. 1.8.
Yes, they've been terrible at. So that's kind of something you just look at.
7 though, and Matt, last 3 games, 7.
I mean, I just think sometimes the first quarter is worth a look here because especially in the NFL where everybody seemingly scores. And Andy, of course, has been doing the half ones and doing the 13.5 against certain teams. So it's just finding little edges. Remember, if you don't like the spreads and the totals, find little edges. They're out there, and certainly you can do that.
It's like in basketball when I found the 2 props that hit every single night. It was like, just you get those little weird props and you can go on a 13-2 run. So
real quick, opponents first quarter, the rank from obviously this is the worst, the people to bet.
Oh yeah, that's a good
Dallas, Jacksonville, Washington, New York Jets, Cleveland, Philadelphia, Arizona, and Seattle. So it's 8.1 on average. It's 8 for Dallas and Jacksonville, and 7.5, 7.3. So for the Cleveland, the Jets, Washington, Jacksonville, and Dallas, they're all averaging a touchdown against in the first quarter.
Yeah, that Dallas playing the Dallas opponent first half over has been mighty good for the old pocketbook.
Not even a prop wager, just in general for a first quarter spread. To not be scared of that bigger number you'll get.
Yeah. 49ers at Saints. What an incredible, I'm calling it the dump off year for Drew Brees. His passes average 5.8 yards in the air. I mean, dead last by a mile in the league, and yet he's thrown for 2,100 yards and 17 touchdowns. I don't even know what to make of the 49ers right now. It's literally come down to on Sunday mornings, I have to see who's playing for them. I can't even look up props for them. You know, I hit the Ayuk prop a couple weeks ago, which was money, but you know, now everyone's banged up. So 49ers at Saints. I'm not doubting Drew Brees anymore. I can't take any unders on him. And Kamara's the gift that keeps on giving, is it not, Matt?
Not last week, at least receiving wise. That is no longer an easy gravy train every week because I think he only had like 3-4 receptions for like 20 yards, if that. So as long as everybody's there, which they are, I'm not going to do that anymore. But yeah, Kamara rushing and receiving is I mean, and figure in this game he should be busy. But the Saints offense is too unpredictable. Who knew last week was going to be a Taysom Hill week? Like, that's just ridiculous. So, to me, I usually try and stay away from offenses like that.
On the topic of us talking about the short yardage and stuff like that, and also that weird game we saw from Tampa Bay, and not knowing who the hell is going to be in a lineup each week for the San Francisco 49ers team, the New Orleans Saints rank number 2 in opponent rushing yards allowed per game. We won't mention last week with the 8 from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, that helped.
But last 3 on average, it's 47, and on the season, it's 80 per game. So I would take a look at somewhere like around that. It's a good way to look at a team that's obviously you can bet some offensive props for them as well. But from a defensive standpoint, trying to get the unders on some running backs for the San Francisco 49ers, if they even have any to play.
I know, that's what's so hard about it. It's like, who are we playing? I don't know. All right, last game, and I'm glad this is the last game. I mean, talk about an interesting game between 2 young quarterbacks. We're going to probably see these guys for a long time. Chargers at Dolphins. Tua and Herbert. I mean, Herbert, he just chucks the ball all around. Keenan Allen is having an incredible year. I believe Justin Jackson is hurt. I think he's not going to play. You have to wait. He might be a game time decision. And it's working out well for Herbert and the Chargers passing props because that running game is so bad. And Tua at 248 yards last week after kind of a it wasn't a great performance the week before, but he didn't need to. So what do you think? 248 yards for Tua, I thought was kind of interesting. It gives a little hope for some of the over props for the Dolphins passing game. Matt, I'll start with you. What do you think about this game?
It's interesting because for as good as the Dolphins defense is in terms of points allowed, they're allowing 400 plus yards 4 times this season already. They bend, but don't break. And I've said over and over again, a veteran quarterback, the Chargers would have been done already. If this was Phillip Rivers, this season would have been over. But you've got Herbert, who's playing for Rookie of the Year, and who's playing because he's a rookie in the NFL, so he's never going to stop. And to me, I know these close losses have to get to him, but I think every week he's worth a look in terms of his over for the passing touchdowns and all that stuff. So I'm buying into this Chargers offense still.
Andrew?
Yeah, I think from like a mental sports standpoint, it's important that Matt mentioned that, because no matter who you are, no matter how much money you're getting paid as a professional athlete, it's easy to check out. We see it in baseball all the time. But with this, the guy Justin Herbert, a guy only a year younger than me, he seems motivated as hell, and a guy that's continuously on a week in, week out basis doesn't care really what's happened the week before. And I find that really respectable. We saw that with Joe Burrow as well. A couple of really close games that they've been involved in, and they've come up short. And now with this guy Justin Herbert, it's the same thing with him. But the motivation, you want to talk about it, you presented off the top with these two quarterbacks going head to head. Obviously, two really young guys. Number 2 versus number 3. As far as the quarterback draft rankings go, I'm looking at the plus money again with over 2.5 touchdowns here, passing touchdowns for Justin Herbert. And I think if you look at the Dolphins, without some of their great fumbles happening from the opposition or interceptions on their part, we haven't really had a chance to see what their defense has been able to do as far as defensive coverage, because they've been so fortunate with these fumbles or a few picks. So in this game here, maybe take a look at Justin Herbert, pull the old Matt Josephs and say no INT. So I'm sure that'll be a favorite prop.
Nice. Tua had an incredible run last week where he dipped out of a tackle. I thought he was surely done for, and ran ahead. I'm going to be looking for a Tua over rushing prop. If it's low enough.
Love that.
If I get that like 8.5, 9.5, where I just need one scramble where the linebackers forget to keep an eye on him. If I get a low enough number, I'll definitely be taking the Tua prop. So, oh my gosh, it's after 5:00. Wow.
There was one I want to mention real quick to you guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
I got to give a shout out. I'm always watching what different people are saying, and Gabe Morency had a very good point about the punt props. He said that he was betting the over props a lot of the times early in the season, and I went and looked at the numbers, and how many teams right now in the NFL are punting the ball, over 4 times a game. Even look at the Giants. Even look at some of these teams that aren't putting up a bunch of points on the game. We're seeing 7.5s, 8.5s for over under for punts on games. I may have taken 2 wagers all year long on these punt props. Probably went 1-on-1 or something like that with it. Based off the trend that I looked at, based off what he was saying on his show, I think it's something that's very interesting to look towards under. With the amount of teams that are realizing that they should be going for it on 4th and 2, 4th and 1, especially when they're deep, closing in on the red zone, so on and so forth. The under seems to be the look, and it's one of those things how I think Prez talked about it with Matt one time. These props have limits at sports books for a reason. And I think one's just like that, where based off the look on your guys' face, and especially Matt's, it's like, Andrew, what the hell are you talking about? But there's a reason why those are the ones that you can exploit sometimes and take advantage of. So I'm going to be looking at a few of those, especially in these super competitive games. Look at this, the Cardinals game this week. Are you looking at a prop for punts in that game? It's going to be just touchdowns or field goals the entire game.
Seahawks.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's good. I think that's one of the reasons why we all love props. Is I've always said, like, if you want to find value in something, you can look at a football game and you have the spread and the total, or you can click on the props page and you have 28 sections of different props. Like, where are you going to find the most value? It's going to be in one of those 28 sections, and then those random ones you can find the honey spot. And and cash it in. So, man, we have blown through our time, but who cares? This show's too much fun. I'll go and promote myself. Takedown Live is going to be live tomorrow night. We had an amazing prediction on the main event last week. It was a 2-1 underdog that hit really easily. We had another winning week on that show, and then NFL props will be up. For me, the package is already up. You can get it, and then it'll just be updated. And don't forget to use the promo code for either three of us, Prop10, to get $10 off a package. Matt, what can we expect from you this weekend?
I got 2 plays for tonight in college football. I'll have the rest of the Saturday card up for tomorrow, coming up later on tonight on a 60% run in college football since week 2. Woo! And then the NFL props will be up tomorrow night to beat the Overpalooza. By the way, how'd that Nick Foles INT prop go last week?
I know all good things must come to an end, but it doesn't mean there's not going to be a resurrection.
It's going to be set 2 weeks in a row. Matt Nagy's not calling plays anymore for the Bears, so Nick Foles is going to have a huge week this week against the Vikings.
By the way, he did have an interception that got overturned because the tip of the ball touched the ground. So let's not say he had a superfluous
0.
It
I
was
found
0.
that so interesting. I had my best week I've had on this show, countless winners. Then I just see Matt tweet at Andy and I, hey, look, these are the winners I mentioned on the show this past week. I'm like, oh, okay, that's how we're doing it. Okay.
Well, we are. No, I'm just saying this funds the sands of time in the Gettysburg Address, whatever the hell he said. Hey, he sent the picture of his bet to us there.
I know. I'm just joking.
I'm just saying. That's my guy.
Andrew, what do you got for us?
Yeah, I'm just going to promote the NFL prop package. 11-2 run, 90% right now in the NFL. 5-1. Week 9, hopefully to keep that going. I've been doing my research really hard this week. A lot of completion props I'm looking at, and a couple receiving props. So, just like Andy and Matt, I'll have mine updated, but you can buy that right now for $39. Just don't buy one prop at a time. Use this coupon code PROP10, get $10 off, turn it from $39 into $29. That's $4 more than it costs for one play alone.
Nice. Great stuff, guys. And I just want to shout out to everybody that follows the show every week. We say it every week, but seriously, you guys, this show, man, you guys have so much knowledge. Yes, we're growing it. And you guys have so much knowledge. Some of the props you guys bring up, I've never even thought of looking at. You guys have definitely steered me in some great directions, and we appreciate the interaction. And keep it up, because we're only going to be growing this thing bigger and bigger and bigger. The more sports that keep coming back, and the longer we do this, we're only going to get better at what we do. So thank you so much, guys. All right, 10 after 5, weekend is officially started. Let's hit some props this weekend. Good luck. Hope everyone makes a lot of money this weekend. We will see you next week on Prop It Up.